Kansas City just beat out Austin, Nashville, and Denver as one of America's hottest housing markets for 2025. Zillow's latest report has KC in the top 10 nationwide, and trust me, something big is happening. While markets like Austin and Nashville are cooling off, Kansas City is heating up fast. I've helped over 60 families relocate here in the last year alone, and I'm seeing patterns most people are completely missing. The secret is getting out, and the window of opportunity, it's closing. From major developments adding thousands of jobs to neighborhoods where home values have jumped 15 to 50%, KC is changing and fast. If you've ever thought about making a move, now is the time to pay attention. I'm Kyle, your Kansas City Realtor and Insider, and today, I'm pulling back the curtain on exactly what's driving this boom and where you should be looking before everyone else catches on. Now, before we dive into what's happening on the ground, let's talk about why Kansas City ranked so high on Zillow's 2025 hot market list. This isn't just some random ranking. Zillow uses a specific formula to predict which markets are set to take off. They analyze home value growth, tracking which cities are seeing steady appreciation without the kind of volatility that leads to corrections. They also look at who's actually staying, not just people moving in, but how many are putting down roots and buying homes instead of just passing through. Then there's the job market versus housing supply. If the city is adding jobs faster than it's building homes, that's a major sign of rising demand. And finally, they measure how fast homes are selling. In a competitive market, well-priced homes disappear in days, sometimes hours, which is exactly what we're seeing in some Kansas City neighborhoods. But here's where it gets interesting. Kansas City is defying expectations. Markets like Austin and Nashville, which dominated these rankings for years, are cooling off as affordability disappears and demand slows. Meanwhile, Kansas City is doing the opposite. And it's not just Zillow taking notice. Realtor.com and the National Association of Realtors are also calling Kansas City a market to watch, highlighting the exact same strengths. So what's actually happening here that's making such a big impact? Let's break it all down. Let's talk affordability, because I know that's the first thing on everyone's mind. After living in Denver, where the median home price has soared to nearly $600,000, I can tell you firsthand, Kansas City still offers incredible value. Right now, our median home price sits around $300,000 compared to the national average of $420,000. That's a massive difference whether you're buying your first home or upgrading to more space. But let's be real. Not all is smooth sailing. Affordability, it isn't just about home prices, it's about what it costs to own one. And in Jackson County, that has been a mess. You've probably heard about property tax chaos over the last few years. Heck, I've talked about it a lot on this channel. The county was ordered to roll back 2023 tax assessments, but in the end, the courts dismissed the order. Translation? Property taxes in Kansas City are all over the place and somewhat unpredictable depending on where you buy. Meanwhile, Johnson County is a completely different story. It's one of the hottest markets in the metro, and in places like Prairie Village, Lenexa, and Overland Park, starter homes are now regularly hitting the mid 400s. And if you're looking in Shawnee, we've had clients with budgets of well above the median price who have written 3 offers and lost every single time. Now, if you're trying to stretch your dollar, just crossing the state line can save you 50 to 75 grand on a comparable home. And if you go even further east into Raytown, Grandview, and Independence, 3-bedroom homes in good condition are still available in the mid 200s, which is insane. Another underrated affordability sweet spot, north of the river. Places like Liberty and Gladstone offer newer construction homes that would cost $100,000 to $200,000 more over in Johnson County. Now, speaking of new construction, affordability is a completely different conversation here. Before the pandemic, you could still find new builds starting in the high 200s in some parts of the metro. Those days are long gone. Between rising material costs, labor shortages, and skyrocketing land prices, most entry-level new construction now starts in the mid to high 300s, and that's typically for a smaller home on a slab way out on the edges of the metro. Want new construction closer in? Be ready to start in the 500s for most developments. Now, there is good news. Interest rates are projected to keep dropping through 2025, and we also work with several builders who are offering rate buydowns. Many economists predict rates could hit 5% or even the high 4s by the end of the year. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've heard that before, but to put that in perspective, on a $350,000 home, a 1% drop in interest rates could save you about $250 a month on your mortgage. That's a big deal, especially when you factor in rising property taxes. The bottom line is that Kansas City still offers incredible value, especially compared to coastal markets and even other Midwestern cities like Chicago and Minneapolis, where we've helped many of you move from. But those dirt cheap prices, they're long gone. And KC's rise isn't just about affordability. There's one major factor pushing us into the top housing markets that most people aren't talking about. But first, let's take a look at Kansas City's job market, because that's where things get really interesting. Here's the thing, Kansas City's job market isn't just growing, it's booming. And that's a huge reason why home prices are climbing. We're not just talking about one industry driving this growth. Kansas City's job expansion is diverse, with tech, healthcare, logistics, and advanced manufacturing all thriving at the same time. That kind of industry mix is rare, and it makes the city's economic future more stable than markets that rely on just one sector. In fact, Forbes just released its top employers for 2025, and get this, 18 of them are right here in the Kansas City metro. That kind of national recognition isn't just about bragging rights. It's a sign of job security, rising wages, and more professionals moving here for career opportunities. And then there's the Panasonic plant, set to bring 4,000 new jobs this year alone. We've already helped some of you relocate here as part of Panasonic's launch, but that's just the beginning. At the same time, private sector hiring is accelerating while government job cuts are tightening the labor market. Employers are now competing for top talent, driving up wages, which means more people can afford to buy homes. We were already sitting at a 3% unemployment rate in December of 2024, one of the lowest in the country. Add in high-paying new jobs and an influx of out-of-state buyers, and Kansas City's housing market is feeling the pressure. More jobs, higher wages, more people competing for homes. That's why if you're waiting for prices to drop, you might be waiting a long time. Everything is pointing to continued appreciation, especially in the most sought-after neighborhoods. Now, can you overpay for a home? Yes, you can, and we'll get to that in a minute. But job growth is just one piece of the puzzle. The next factor shaping Kansas City's future is infrastructure and development. And some of these projects, they could completely transform the metro. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss one of my videos. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. The link's down in the pinned comment below. We send it out weekly, and it's packed with all the essential updates and insider info on what's happening around Kansas City. Now, Kansas City's job boom isn't just adding paychecks, it's adding people. Over the last decade, the metro has grown by 7%, bringing in 150,000 new residents. But what's really interesting isn't just the numbers, it's who's moving here and where they're moving to. Now, part of this growth comes from what we call boomerangs. People like me who grew up here, moved away, and then came back when we realized how good we had it. I spent a decade in Denver before moving back to raise my family, and I meet people with the same story almost every single day. Then there are first-time Kansas City residents, buyers relocating from coastal cities and other Midwestern metros for jobs, affordability, and a better lifestyle. Just last month, we helped a couple from Seattle buy their first home in Brookside, something they told me would have been impossible in their old city. But KC isn't just growing, it's changing. 5 years ago, downtown had 28,000 residents. Today, it's over 34,000, and that number is climbing fast. The transformation has been incredible. Those old empty buildings, they're now apartments, condos, restaurants, and shops. The city is pushing for 40,000 downtown residents by 2030, but at this pace, we'll hit it even sooner. The biggest suburban boom is happening in Johnson County on the Kansas side. Areas like Overland Park, Lenexa, and Shawnee are exploding with new developments, top-tier schools, and rising home prices. Starter homes that were in the 300s just a few years ago are now selling well into the 4s, and competition is fierce. Buyers with strong budgets are still losing bidding wars, and new construction can barely keep up. Eastern Jackson County is also seeing major growth. Lee Summit, once considered too far out, has become one of the metro's most desirable suburbs. Its population has jumped nearly 10% in the last decade, and with its thriving downtown, top-rated schools, and newer neighborhoods, demand isn't slowing down anytime soon. Up north, the Northland is another hot spot, with areas like Liberty, North Kansas City, and Parkville drawing more buyers looking for affordable new construction and strong community vibes. Meanwhile, Raytown and Independence still offer some of the best value in the metro, with move-in ready 3-bedroom homes in the mid $200,000. But it's not just about where people are moving, it's about why. More young families are choosing Kansas City because they can actually afford to buy a home and settle down here. That's why places like Prairie Village, Brookside, and the Northland are so competitive. But at the end of the day, the biggest reason people are choosing Kansas City is the lifestyle. Big city perks without big city headaches. Amazing food, pro sports, a thriving art scene, all without sky-high prices, traffic, or stress of larger metros. The pandemic sped up this trend as remote work became more common. People stopped choosing their homes based on commute times and started choosing based on quality of life. And for a growing number of people, that choice is Kansas City. Yes, jobs and affordability matter, but Kansas City's biggest advantage, it's a place where people actually want to move and stay. The growth of Kansas City is not slowing down, but the real question is, are we ready for it? With more people, more jobs, and more demand for housing, the city is making some big moves to keep up and stay ahead. One of the biggest game changers, our new airport. If you haven't been yet, KCI's $1.5 billion terminal is a complete transformation. But this isn't just about nicer travel experiences. It's about attracting more businesses, more tourism, and more direct flights, making KC even more connected to the rest of the country. Transportation is another huge shift. For years, Kansas City has been known as a car-centric city, but that's changing. The streetcar extension is underway, expanding the line from downtown to the riverfront to UMKC, a move that's already sparking development along its route. With new bike lanes, pedestrian-friendly initiatives, and an increasing focus on walkability, Kansas City slowly but surely is shifting toward a more modern, connected layout. Now, demand for housing is skyrocketing, and we're seeing urban infill projects, new apartment complexes, and suburban expansions in places like Lenexa, Lee Summit, and the Northland. But the challenge is keeping up with the demand while maintaining affordability. That's why the city is pushing for more mixed-use development and smarter zoning policies to make housing more accessible. And it's not just homes. Tech and innovation hubs are fueling even more growth. Google's $2 billion data center is coming to Kansas City, cementing the metro as a growing tech hub. Meanwhile, Panasonic's expansion into advanced manufacturing is creating thousands of high-paying jobs, bringing even more talent and investment. So what does all this mean? Kansas City isn't just growing, it's evolving. The city is actively investing in its future, creating a place where people don't just move, but stay. And that raises the big question. Is Kansas City still affordable, and will it stay that way? Because with all this growth, we have to talk about where home prices are heading next. I just sat down with a couple who are excited about making their move to Kansas City, but I had to be upfront and honest with them. The reality is, if you're buying in today's market, from this time through June, you're most likely going to be overpaying. With demand outpacing supply, most homes are selling with multiple offers above market value and with waived inspections and appraisals. That's just the nature of a super competitive market. So here's what I told them and what you need to consider. If you have to buy now, you should be prepared to stay put for at least the next 5 years. The worst possible scenario is overpaying for a home today and needing to sell 1 to 2 years later. You most likely will not have recouped enough appreciation to break even. So if that's you and you're considering a short-term move, then renting might be a better alternative. Meanwhile, if you're waiting for prices to drop, you might be waiting quite a long time. Home values in Kansas City are still on the rise, and they won't slow down until we see more inventory hit the market, and who knows when that's going to be. While nationwide, home prices dipped in January by 2.2%, Kansas City saw a 10% increase. That's a massive jump, and it's exactly what we've been seeing since the start of this year. Multiple offers, waived contingencies, and fierce competition. This surge followed a slowdown in the second half of 2024 when election year uncertainty made some buyers hesitate. But now, the floodgates have reopened. Demand is high, supply is tight, and home prices are climbing. The reality is, we need more homes, more builders, more developers, more housing stock to balance things out. Until that happens, Kansas City's market will stay competitive and prices will continue to rise. So is Kansas City really a top 10 market like Zillow has predicted? All signs are pointing to yes. Job growth is fueling population growth is driving housing demand, and Kansas City, we're responding with major investments in infrastructure, development, and innovation. The new airport is connecting us to more opportunities. Transportation projects are making the city more accessible. Tech and manufacturing are booming. And even with affordability concerns, Kansas City still offers more value than most major metro areas. Yes, home prices are rising. Yes, competition is fierce, but that's exactly what happens in a market that's on the rise. If you're considering a move to Kansas City or just looking to switch things up, my team and I, we would love to help. Just send us an email at info@movingtokc.net and we'll get you on the right path. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.